Biafra, officially the Republic of Biafra, was a secessionist state in eastern Nigeria that existed from the 30th of May, 1967, to January 1970. It took its name from the Bight of Biafra, the Atlantic Bay to its south. The inhabitants were mostly the Igbo people who led the secession due to economic, ethnic, cultural and religious tensions among the various peoples of Nigeria. Other ethnic groups that constituted the republic were the Efik, Ibibio, Annang, Ejagham, Eket, Ibeno and the Ijaw, among others. The secession of the Biafran region was the primary cause of the Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Biafran War. The state was formally recognized by Gabon, Haiti, Ivory Coast, Tanzania, and Zambia. Other nations which did not give official recognition, but provided support and assistance to Biafra included Israel, France, Spain, Portugal, Norway, Rhodesia, South Africa and the Vatican City. Biafra also received aid from non-state actors, including Joint Church Aid, Holy Ghost Fathers of Ireland, Caritas International, Mark Press and U.S. Catholic Relief Services. After 2.5 years of war, during which over 3 million Biafran civilians died from starvation occasioned by the total blockade of the region by the Nigerian government, Biafran forces under the motto of "No victor, no vanquished" surrendered to the Nigerian federal military government, and Biafra was reintegrated into Nigeria. History. Secession. In 1960, Nigeria became independent of the United Kingdom. As with many other new African states, the borders of the country did not reflect earlier ethnic boundaries. Thus, the northern Sudan and Sahelian Savannah region of the country is made up of Muslim majority, while the southern population was predominantly Christian. Furthermore, Nigeria's oil, its primary source of income, was located in the south of the country. Following independence, Nigeria was divided primarily along ethnic lines, with Hausa and Fulani in the north, Yoruba in the southwest, Igbo and Ijaw in the southeast. In January 1966, a military coup occurred during which 30 political leaders, including Nigeria's Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, and the Northern Premier, Sir Amadu Bello, were killed. It was alleged to be an Igbo coup because Nnamdi Azikiwe, the president of Igbo extraction, and the premier of the southeastern part of the country, were not killed. Many others who held the 1966 coup in mind as being masterminded by the Igbo ethnic group of Nigeria did so because Major Kaduna Nzeogwu was perceived to be an Igbo soldier, and he led the coup. In July 1966, northern officers and army units staged a counter-coup. Muslim officers named a general from a small ethnic group in central Nigeria, General Yakubu Gowon, as the head of the federal military government. The two coups deepened Nigeria's ethnic tensions. In September 1966, approximately 30,000 Igbo were killed in the north, and some northerners were killed in backlashes in eastern cities. Biafra as a territory existed long before the amalgamation and independence of Nigeria as a republic. Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, in pursuit of a more agreeable arrangement for peaceful coexistence of all regions in Nigeria, proposed for a confederated Nigeria. In January 1967, the military leaders and senior police officials of each region met in Aburi, Ghana, and agreed on a loose confederation of regions. The northerners were at odds with the Aburi Accord. Obafemi Awolowo, the leader of the western region, warned that if the eastern region seceded, the western region would also, which persuaded the Northerners, after the federal and eastern governments failed to reconcile. On the 26th of May, the eastern region voted to secede from Nigeria. On the 30th of May, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, the southeastern region's military governor, announced the Republic of Biafra, citing the Easterners killed in the post-coup violence. The large amount of oil in the region created conflict, as oil is a major component of the Nigerian economy. The eastern region was very ill-equipped for war, outmanned and outgunned by the military of the remainder of Nigeria. Their advantages included fighting in the homeland and support of most southeasterners. War. The FMG launched police measures to annex the eastern region on 6 July 1967. The FMG's initial efforts were unsuccessful. The Biafrans successfully launched their own offensive, occupying areas in the Midwestern region in August 1967. By October 1967, the FMG had regained the land after intense fighting. In September 1968, the Federal Army planned what Gowan described as the final offensive. Initially, the final offensive was neutralized by Biafran troops. In the latter stages of Southern FMG offensive managed to break through the fierce resistance. During the war there were great shortages of food and medicine throughout Biafra, due largely to the Nigerian government's blockade of the region, as suggested in a number of arguments by leaders of the Nigerian government. Anthony Enahoro stated that there are various ways of fighting a war. You might starve your enemy into submission, or you might kill him on the battlefield. Obafemi Awolowo said, "All is fair in war, and starvation is one of the weapons of war, and I don't see why we should feed our enemies in order for them to fight harder." Many volunteer bodies organized the Biafran Airlift, which provided blockade-breaking relief flights into Biafra, carrying food and medicines in, and later provided means of evacuation for refugee children. On the 30th of June 1969, the Nigerian government banned all Red Cross aid to Biafra. 2 weeks later it allowed medical supplies through the front lines, but restricted food supplies. Later in October 1969, OUQ appealed to the United Nations to mediate a ceasefire. The federal government called for Biafra's surrender. In December, the FMG managed to cut Biafra in half, primarily by the efforts of 3 Marine Commando Division of the Nigerian Army, led by then-Colonel Benjamin Adekunle, popularly called the Black Scorpion, and later by Olusegun Obasanjo. OUQ fled to Ivory Coast, leaving his chief of staff, Philip Efik, to act as the officer administering the government. Efik called for a ceasefire on the 12th of January and submitted to the FMG. By then, more than 1 million people had died in battle or from starvation. Biafra was reabsorbed into Nigeria on the 15th of January. Geography. Biafra comprised over 29,848 square miles of land, with terrestrial borders shared with Nigeria to the north and west, and with Cameroon to the east. Its coast was on the Gulf of Guinea in the south. The former country's northeast bordered the Benue Hills and mountains that lead to Cameroon. 3 major rivers flow from Biafra into the Gulf of Guinea: the Imo River, the Cross River and the Niger River. The territory of Biafra is covered nowadays by the Nigerian states of Cross River, Ebonyi, Enugu, Anambra, Imo, Bayelsa, Rivers, Abia, Delta and Akwa Ibom. Language. Whilst it existed, the predominant language of Biafra was Igbo. Along with Igbo, there were a variety of other languages, including Efik, Ijaw, Annang and Ibibio. English was the official language. Economy. An early institution created by the Biafran government was the Bank of Biafra, accomplished under Decree No. 3 of 1967. The bank carried out all central banking functions including the administration of foreign exchange and the management of the public debt of the Republic. The bank was administered by a governor and 4 directors. The first governor who signed on banknotes was Sylvester Ugo. A second decree, Decree No. 4 of 1967, modified the Banking Act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the Republic of Biafra. The bank was first located in Enugu, but due to the ongoing war, the bank was relocated several times. Biafra attempted to finance the war through foreign exchange. After Nigeria announced their currency would no longer be legal tender, this effort increased. After the announcement, tons of Nigerian banknotes were transported in an effort to acquire foreign exchange. The currency of Biafra had been the Nigerian pound, until the Bank of Biafra started printing out its own notes, the Biafran pound. The new currency went public on the 28th of January 1968, and the Nigerian pound was not accepted as an exchange unit. The first issue of the banknotes included only 5 shillings notes and 1 pound notes. The Bank of Nigeria exchanged only £30 for an individual and £300 for enterprises in the second half of 1968. In 1969, new notes were introduced: £10, £5, £1, 10, and 5. It is estimated that a total of £115 minus 140 million Biafran pounds were in circulation by the end of the conflict. With a population of about 14 million, approximately £10 per person. In uncirculated condition, these are very inexpensive and readily available for collectors. Military. At the beginning of the war, Biafra had 3,000 soldiers, but at the end of the war the soldiers totaled 30,000. There was no official support for the Biafran army by any other nation throughout the war, although arms were clandestinely acquired. Because of the lack of official support, the Biafrans manufactured many of their weapons locally. A number of Europeans served in the Biafran cause. German-born Rolf Steiner was ALT colonel assigned to the 4th Commando Brigade, and Welshman Taffy Williams served as a major until the very end of the conflict. The Biafrans managed to set up a small yet effective air force. The BAF commanders were Tutsoki and later Godwin Easylow, who had trained with the Royal Canadian Air Force. Early infantry included 2 B-25 Mitchells, 1 B-26 Invader, a converted DC-3 and 1 Dove. In 1968, the Swedish pilot Carl Gustaf von Rosen suggested the Minikon project to General Oyukwu. By the spring of 1969, Biafra had assembled 5 MFI-9Bs in Gabon, calling them Biafra babies. They were colored green, were able to carry 6 68mm anti-armor rockets under each wing, and had simple sights. The 6 aeroplanes were flown by 3 Swedish pilots and 3 Biafran pilots. In September 1969, Biafra acquired 4 ex-Army de l'Air North American T-6 gigaseconds, which were flown to Biafra the following month, with another aircraft lost on the ferry flight. These aircraft flew missions until January 1970 and were flown by Portuguese ex-military pilots. Legacy. The international humanitarian organization Médecins Sans Frontières originated in response to the suffering in Biafra. During the crisis, French medical volunteers, in addition to Biafran health workers and hospitals, were subjected to attacks by the Nigerian army and witnessed civilians being murdered and starved by the blockading forces. French Dr. Bernard Kouchner also witnessed these events, particularly the huge number of starving children, and, when he returned to France, he publicly criticized the Nigerian government and the Red Cross for the seemingly complicit behavior. With the help of other French doctors, Kochner put Biafra in the media spotlight and called for an international response to the situation. These doctors, led by Kochner, concluded that a new aid organization was needed that would ignore political, religious boundaries and prioritize the welfare of victims. In the study, Smallpox and its Eradication, Fenner and colleagues describe how vaccine supply shortages during the Biafra smallpox campaign led to the development of the focal vaccination technique, later adopted worldwide by the World Health Organization, which led to the early and cost-effective interruption of smallpox transmission in West Africa and elsewhere. On the 29th of May 2000, the Lagos Guardian newspaper reported that the now ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo commuted to retirement the dismissal of all military persons who fought for the breakaway state of Biafra during Nigeria's 1967–1970 civil war. In a national broadcast, he said the decision was based on the belief that justice must at all times be tempered with mercy. In July 2006, the Center for World Indigenous Studies reported that government-sanctioned killings were taking place in the southeastern city of Onitsha because of a shoot-to-kill policy directed toward Biafran loyalists, particularly members of the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra. In 2010, researchers from Karolinska Institutet in Sweden and University of Nigeria, Nsukka, showed that Igbos born in Biafra during the years of the famine were of higher risk of suffering from obesity, hypertension and impaired glucose metabolism compared to controls born a short period after the famine had ended. The findings are in line with the developmental origin of health and disease hypothesis, suggesting that malnutrition in early life is a predisposing factor for cardiovascular diseases and diabetes later in life. Movement to resecede. There is no central authority coordinating the Biafran resecession campaign. The movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra is one of the numerous groups advocating for a separate country for the people. Of southeastern Nigeria, they accuse the state of marginalizing the Igbo people. MASSOB says it is a peaceful group and advertises a 25-stage plan to achieve its goal peacefully. It has two arms of government: the Biafra government in exile and Biafra shadow government. The Nigerian government accuses MASSOB of violence. MASSOB's leader, Ralph Vazurag, was arrested in 2005 and was detained on treason charges. He has since been released. In 2009, MASSOB launched an unrecognized Biafran international passport in response to persistent demand by some Biafran sympathizers in the diaspora. On June 16, 2015, the Supreme Council of Elders of the Indigenous People of Biafra, another pro-Biafra organization, sued the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the right to self-determination within the region as a sovereign state. Another group, Indigenous People of Biafra, led by a United Kingdom-based Biafran, Nnamdi Kanu, reinvigorated the quest for Biafran realization in 2012. He established a radio station to champion the Biafran cause, Radio Biafra, which has been broadcasting at various frequencies around the world. The Nigerian government, through its broadcasting regulators, the Broadcasting Organization of Nigerian and Nigerian Communications Commission, has sought to clamp down on the UK-based station with limited success. On November 17, 2015, the Abia State Police Command seized an IPOB radio transmitter in Umuahia. Mr. Kanu is presently being detained by the federal government. The various groups clamoring for the restoration of the independence of Biafra have often been beset with internal wranglings that have impeded its secessionist efforts. On October 19, 2015, Chief Ralphu Vazirike of the Movement for the Actualization of Sovereign State of Biafra disclosed that the director of Radio Biafra and leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, does not belong to the movement and was sacked for indiscipline and for inciting violence among members. There has been a renewed, intense agitation for Biafran secession. Since August 2015, protests have erupted in cities across Nigeria's southeast. Though peaceful, the protesters have been routinely attacked by the Nigerian police and army, with scores of people reportedly killed. Many others have been injured and/or arrested. On December 23, 2015, the federal government charged Nnamdi Kanu with treasonable felony in the Federal High Court in Abuja. According to the Southeast-based coalition of human rights organizations, security forces under the directive of the federal government has killed 80 members of the indigenous people of Biafra and the supporters. Between August 30, 2015 and February 9, 2016 in a renewed clampdown on the movement. A report by Amnesty International also accuses the Nigerian military of killing at least 79 armed Biafran separatists in the city of Onitsha prior to a march on the 30th of May, 2016 commemorating the 49th anniversary of the initial secession of Biafra. Meaning of Biafra and location. Little is known about the literal meaning of the word Biafra. The word Biafra most likely derives from the subgroup Biafra, a Biafada of the Tender ethnic group who reside primarily in Guinea-Bissau. Manuel Alvarez, a Portuguese Jesuit educator, in his work Ethiopia Minor and a Geographical Account of the Province of Sierra Leone, writes about the Biafra heathen in Chapter 13 of the same book. The word Biafra thus appears to have been a common word in the Portuguese language back in the 16th century historical maps. Early modern maps of Africa from the 15th–19th centuries, drawn by European cartographers from accounts written by explorers and travelers, reveal some information about Biafra. The original word used by the European travelers was not Biafra but Biafra, and sometimes also Biafars. The exact original region of Biafra is not restricted to eastern Nigeria alone. According to the maps, the European travelers used the word Biafra to describe the entire region east of River Niger going down to the Mount Cameroon region, thus including Cameroon and a large area around Gabon. The Bight of Biafra lies in the present south-south region of Nigeria and was renamed to Bight of Boni by the Nigerian government. The word Biafra also appears on maps from the 18th century in the area around Gambia. Maps indicating the word Biafra with corresponding year: 1584, 1644, 1660, 1662, 1707, 1729, 1737, 1805, 1858, 1871. Maps from the 19th century indicating Biafra as the region around today's Cameroon. 1843, 1880, 1890. Additional maps from the Michigan State University Map Collection. Government. Sovereignty over what is referred to as the Biafran region is currently with the Nigerian federal government and the various local governments at the helm of affairs in the states into which the region has been carved up by Nigerian military governments in 1967, 1991 and 1996.